Today on the channel, we're going to take a look at this Rolling Stone issue featuring the King, Eddie Van Halen. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since we did a page turner. I just recently got this Rolling Stone special commemorative issue. This came out right after Eddie's passing as a special issue, remembering Eddie Van Halen. So I've never looked at this. So let's take a look at this Rolling Stone. This is an entire issue featured on the King. All right, so we're kind of skim through this. This is pretty thick, so I don't have time to read through all of it. Let's look at some of the highlights. Remembering Eddie Van Halen plus the 100 greatest guitarists of all time. Okay, so here on the table of contents we have Eddie Van Halen's Balancing Act, Eddie Looks Back, Standing Near a Superhero, the List of 100, and the Essential Playlist. I think I remember reading about this list of 100. Rolling Stone's lists, in my opinion, are always the absolute worst. I think they particularly pick polarizing things just to get people upset and to get them talking about it on the internet because it sells issues, which you can't blame them. This is a classic picture of Eddie. I would love to have like a 36-inch life-size frame poster of that. That would be so cool, man. Obviously, that's from 1984. Eddie in those zebra print pants. You know, Eddie was always in such great shape, man. I guarantee you that dude worked out a lot. I was always envious of his physique throughout his whole life, man. Anyway, I guess I had a bromance going on. This special issue of Rolling Stone is a celebration of rock and roll's primary expressive weapon and its greatest players, as determined by an electorate of living masters and modern disciples. Eddie Van Halen's Balancing Act. All right, so there we got the King back during the Balance era from 95. Eddie cut his hair short, spiked it with some blonde tips, and he sported a goatee. I think that was one of Eddie's coolest looks. Eddie always looked cool no matter what, but I like the Balance look. It was shocking when I first saw it, but you got to admit Eddie looked like a smoldering perfectionist with that haircut and that Ernie Ball music, man. Wow. It was good times. It's funny, Eddie Van Halen says, as he kicks back into the comfort of 5150, the combination recording studio, bunker, video arcade, and playhouse next to his home above the San Fernando Valley in California. We just got back from a European promotional trip, and this one German journalist said to me, "Now wait a minute, I'm no psychologist here, but nobody just does that to their head." I guess they're talking about his haircut. There's a great picture of Eddie and Valerie. And look at that young photograph of Wolfgang. 1995, that's a happy family right there. Here it says, "I wanted to play drums, but he was just better than me, so I thought, okay, I'll play your damn guitar." It's funny, all the interviews Eddie has done, every magazine has to, you know, of course Eddie says that a lot, but they always make that like a feature, like we've never heard that before. I mean, they should pick out some other nugget, like, you know, back in the day, Alex only ate fast food and I liked pasta. That would be more interesting to me than hearing that same story again. All right, man, there's a lot of text on this. I may pick out some snippets here, but we're going to look mostly at the pictures and the big captions. There's Eddie doing some early drums right there. Check out the hat. He was 11 with his first drum kit. Bought him with his mother, his first guitar at age 12. That must have been his Tisco Del Rey guitar. That looks like Eddie's senior photo right there. Looks a lot like my senior photo, actually. Truthfully, that kind of looks like me back when I was his age, too. I think all of us look like that. We kind of had the bowl cut. I guarantee you his mom gave him that haircut. Probably had one of those chairs that you put in the kitchen that had the pull-out steps that sat about 3 feet tall so your mom could reach you and give you that tremendous bowl cut you were about to receive. Eddie looks back, one of rock's greatest guitarists, on the music that inspired him and the origins of his sound. That looks like that was from the 2012 tour. Playing that cool black Wolfgang Stealth. Eddie put on a little bit of weight, if I recall, during the 2012 tour. He was beefing up a little bit. Never looked fat or nothing, but he got a little bit husky for a while there. Just personal observations. Not sure why I do that. In November 2011, Rolling Stone polled dozens of musicians to publish a list of the greatest guitarists of all time. As we prepped the issue, Eddie Van Halen called us to discuss his ballot. What unfolded was a loose, wide-range conversation in which he went through his personal list of guitar heroes. Eric Clapton was the top of his choice, the origins of his own style, and much more. A year later, Van Halen would release A Different Kind of Truth, the band's first album with David Lee Roth since '84. All right, here's this picture. There's a good classic one of him and Dave. 1978. Awesome photo. Standing near a superhero. Tom Morello, Gene Simmons, and others celebrate Eddie Van Halen's epic influence. Steve Vai, a monolithic contribution. The day after I left David Lee Roth's band in 1989, I don't know how I found out, Edward called me, and that was the start of a nice relationship and friendship. For about 6 months, we actually hung out a lot together, and I got to know the guy. There's Ed, 1982. Probably the end of the Fair Warning tour. Maybe the start of, well, yeah, more like Diver Down, I guess. Here's some stuff. Gene Simmons. Eddie was a beautiful soul, a sweetheart of a guy. Joe Satriani's first sentence. When I first heard Eruption come over the radio, I was in a studio apartment above Berkeley, California. I actually had my guitar on, and I was totally transfixed. It was like hearing Hendrix the first time when I was a kid. Tony Iommi. I can't remember if I heard the record first or saw them live. I must have heard the record knowing they were on tour with us, but God, he was an amazing guitar player. Tom Morello. The first thing I heard was the debut record on Chicago radio. They would play Running with the Devil, Eruption, and You Really Got Me. And you know, there's no way to describe it. It was otherworldly. There was no YouTube reference to understand what could even possibly be frickin' happening. There's Hendrix. All right, number one guitar player of all time. So now we switched gears over to the list. So looks like number one was Jimi Hendrix by Pete Townshend. Pete Townshend says, I feel sad for people who have to judge Jimi Hendrix on the basis of recordings and film alone, because in the flesh he was so extraordinary. With Jimmy, I didn't have any envy. I never had any sense that I could ever come close. That's a good quote. Eric Clapton. He looks kind of like Ringo Starr there back in the day. Eric Clapton was number 2 on the list by Eddie Van Halen. Clapton was basically the only guitar player who influenced me. Even though I don't sound like him, there was a basic simplicity to his playing, his style, his vibe, and his sound. He took a Gibson guitar and plugged it into a Marshall, and that was it. The basics, the blues. Solos were melodic and memorable, and that's what the guitar solos should be, part of the song. Great quote from the king himself. Jimmy Page. I would put Jimmy Page in front of Clapton, honestly. I might even put Jimmy Page above Hendrix, but I couldn't do that. Jimmy Page by Joe Perry. Listening to what Jimmy Page does on guitar can transport you. As a lead player, he always plays the right thing for the right spot. He's got such remarkable taste. I would agree. I think Jimmy Page's best solo ever is on Sea of Love from the Honey Drippers. Keith Richards, number 4. Keith is such a cool dude, man. I remember being in junior high school hearing Satisfaction for the first time. By the way, this is from Nils Lofgren. It's a combination of the riff and the chords moving underneath it. Keith wrote 2 and 3 note themes that were more powerful than any great solo. True enough, man. Number 5, Jeff Beck. I would put Jeff Beck third on this list. My list would go Jimmy Page, or Hendrix, Page, Beck, and then Eddie. All right, Jeff Beck has a combination of brilliant technique and personality. It's like he's saying, I'm Jeff Beck, I'm right here, and you can't ignore me. That is very true. B.B. King. Look at old B.B. singing the blues there. B.B.'s influences were set at an early stage. Being from Indianola, Mississippi, he goes back far enough to remember the sound of field hollers and the cornerstone blues figures like Charlie Patton and Robert Johnson. Damn. That's what Billy Gibbons said about B.B. King. Chuck Berry, number 7. He's doing the duck walk there. He's going so fast in the duck walk, that picture looks a little blurry. When I saw Chuck Berry in jazz on a summer's day as a teenager, what struck me was how he was playing against the grain with a bunch of jazz guys. That's what Keith Richards said. Number 8, Eddie Van Halen. There's Eddie jumping off the stage. I bet you that's why his hips went bad, you know, jumping like that and sliding around. Mike McCready said this: when I was 11, I was at my guitar teacher's place and he put on Eruption. It sounded like it came from another planet. I was just learning basic chords like AC/DC and Deep Purple. Eruption really didn't make sense to me, but it was glorious. I have a similar story. I was on a camping trip and I was in a tent and someone put it on a boombox and I heard it and I thought it was a UFO on like tape. I was like, that is a spaceship. And I loved it because I thought it was a spaceship. Then I found out later it was a guitar player and I'm like, no way. Dwayne Allman, number 9, from Robert Randolph. I grew up playing slide guitar in church, and the whole idea was to imitate a human voice. After the old lady or the preacher stopped singing, we had to carry on the melody. That makes total sense. Playing a cool Les Paul standard there in that picture. It's a 1969 picture. Okay. There's Townsend. I love Pete Townsend. Damn, he's great. Pete Townsend doesn't play many solos, which might be why so many people don't realize just how good he really is. He's not like Eddie Van Halen or somebody, but he's so important to rock. He's a visionary musician who really lit the whole thing up. Andy Summers from The Police said that. I would definitely agree with that statement. No one quite had the authority on stage that Pete Townsend commanded. Maybe Jimmy Page came close in that authority figure, but man, Pete, that was Pete's primary weapon. George Harrison. Tom Petty said this: George and I were once in a car and the Beatles song You Can't Do That came on, and with that great riff in the beginning of the 12-string, he goes, I came up with that. And I said, really? How? He said, I was just standing there and thought, I've got to do something. That pretty much sums him up. He just had a way of getting right to business and finding the right thing to play. Probably came from him listening to Carl Perkins and, players like that. Stevie Ray. I love Stevie. I saw Stevie Ray live in '85. Tremendous. In the early 80s, MTV was on the rise and blues guitar was miles away from music's mainstream, but Texas Stevie Ray Vaughan still demanded your attention. He had absorbed the styles of just about every great blues guitarist to come before him, just like Hendrix, and a lot of jazz and rockabilly, and his monster tone, casual virtuosity, and impeccable sense of swing could make a blues shuffle like Pride and Joy hit as hard as any metal or hip-hop. I think that was single-handedly the longest sentence I've ever read in my life, but it was all 100% true. Albert King, number 13. When Rolling Stone reporter John Landau asked Albert King in '68 who his guitar influences were, King said, nobody, everything I do is wrong. I'm a pioneer of electric blues. King, who was left-handed, played a right-handed 59 Gibson V, upside down. I didn't know that. Moving forward, we're going to kind of skip through these. We got David Gilmour at 14. I think I ought to put him up a little higher in the list. Freddie King, 15th. Derek Trucks, 16. All right. So we're putting these two dudes above Satriani. Okay, I have a major issue with that. And Vi. Neil Young, he's a songwriter. I wouldn't really say, I don't know. I'm not going to comment. get myself in trouble here. If I was never going to teach a master class, if I was ever going to teach a master class to a young guitarist, the first thing I would say to them is in the first minute of Neil Young's original Down by the River solo, there are less than 5 truly iconic rock solos ever recorded. I mean, they are iconic solos. He did have a lot of passion. I get it. Les Paul, I don't know how he can be after Neil Young. I don't get that, but that's okay. Lists are subjective. They're supposed to make us upset. James Burton, Carlos Santana, Chet Atkins, 21. Frank Zappa, 22. Buddy Guy, 23. Angus Young at 24. Tony Iommi, 25. All right. Cool. A lot of this I don't agree with. Brian May, 26. Bo Diddley, 27. Johnny Ramone at 28. So Johnny Ramone is above Billy Gibbons. That's a hard no. And Ry Cooder, yeah, right. Scotty Moore, Elmore James, and Ry Cooder. Billy Gibbons at 32. Starting to get disappointed, y'all. Prince, 35 or 33. Curtis Mayfield, 34. John Lee Hooker, 35. Randy Rhoads, 36. I can already hear you, Randy Rhoads fans. Y'all are the most passionate fans on the planet. I can hear you typing in the comments already. That Randy was 36th. Mick Taylor, 37th. Moving on. There's our boy, the Edge. Just kidding. Look at that Edge playing a Les Paul Custom. I don't think I've ever seen him playing a Les Paul Custom. He was 38th. Steve Cropper, 39. Tom Morello, 40th. Mick Ronson, 41. Mike Bloomfield, 42. Still no Satriani. I'm getting upset. Hubert Sumlin, Mark Knopfler, Link Ray, Jerry Garcia at 46th. Funkiest guitar, one of the funkiest I've ever seen. Weird. Moving on, Stephen Stills at 47, John Greenwood, 48, Muddy Waters is 49th. So subjective. Richie Blackmore is 50th. Come on. Johnny Marr, I don't think Johnny Marr really should be on the top 100 list. I think he's great, but Clarence White, Otis Rush, Joe Walsh, one of my favorites, 54th. John Lennon, 55th. Truthfully, Paul McCartney played better guitar than John Lennon. I think Paul McCartney played better guitar than George Harrison. That's going to give me a lot of hate, but whatever. Albert Collins, 56. Roy Gallagher, 57. Peter Green, 58. Wow. Robbie Robertson, 59. Ron Ashton, 60. Forgotten Masters over there. Dickie Betts, 61. Robert Fripp, 62. Johnny Winter, 63. Dwayne Eddy, 64. And Slash, 65th. Slash is ahead of Satriani. I'm getting a little butthurt over the Satriani now that I'm seeing Jack White is 70th and still Kurt Cobain 75th. Still no Joe Satriani. If Satriani isn't in this list somewhere, I'm going to burn this magazine. I'm going to go out to my fire pit and I'm going to light this magazine up. I promise you. I'll even put it on camera. Leslie West, 66. T-Bone Walker, 67. John McLaughlin, 68. Richard Thompson, 69th. Jack White, 70. Robert Johnson, 71. Okay. Robert Johnson, man. He's after Jack White, dude. Jesus Christ. 72, John Frusciante. Kurt Cobain, 75th. Dick Dale, 74. Joni Mitchell. All right, we're going south fast, man. We're going down like River Phoenix. All right. Robbie Krieger, 76. Willie Nelson, 77. John Faby, 78. Mike Campbell, 79. Mike Campbell's a great player, dude. Buddy Holly, 80th. I don't even think Buddy Holly knew how to play guitar. I think he knew like 4 chords. He sang Peggy Sue. I mean, I respect the man. May he rest in peace. Hey, at least James made the list. It's funny, James is on the list and Kurt has yet to show up. You know, back in the 80s, I'm going to pause for a minute. Back in the 80s, Kurt Hammett won every year for like best guitarist for years, man. Kurt could do no wrong. Now everybody hates Kurt, and Kurt can't even make the top 100 list. But like magazine after magazine poll, year after year after year, Kirk was the hero. Now he's everybody's, punching bag. I like Kirk though. Nels Cline 82, Eddie Hazel 83, Joe Perry 84, Andy Summers 85. That is a travesty. Andy Summers came up with some of the most ingenious guitar parts on those Police records. John Massis and Hetfield. Papa Het is at 87. I love that V. I wish Gibson would like make that V like a Murphy Lab. I would sell a kidney and a testicle to buy that if they put that out in the Murphy Lab. And I would document it on YouTube just so you all could watch it. Not that you would like to, but I'd put it there anyway. Carl Perkins, 88th. Bonnie Raitt, 89. Tommy Verlaine, 90. All right. We still don't have Joe Satriani on this list. Dave Davies, 91. Dimebag, 92. Paul Simon, 93. Maybe I misunderstood the criteria for this list. Peter Buck, 94. Roger McGuinn, 95. Bruce Springsteen, 96. Steve Jones, 97. Alex Lifeson, 98. Thurston Moore, 99. And Lindsey Buckingham comes in at 100. Let me look at this cover of this thing again. 100 greatest guitarists of all time. All right, so let's get this straight. The Edge is on this list, as well as Jack White. Jack White placed ahead of Robert Johnson. And Joe Satriani did not make this list. Okay, I'm starting to sweat. All right, here is Brian May in 1975. Okay. Oh, here are the voters. All right. We need email addresses, right? We need to like blast these guys. Well, this list is pretty good. Mick Mars was on here. Jerry Cantrell, Richie Blackmore, Lenny Kravitz, Melissa Etheridge. All right, so I mean it's a melting pot. There's a lot of, I guess if you're talking technique and shredders and you had all these guys like me that were making this list, the list would be like, Reb Beach would be on here and stuff like that. Essential playlist, the key track from each of the 100 greatest guitarists. All right, we're going to kind of skip through this, but some of these questionable ones, I got to find what is the key track that Jack White graced us with. What was he, like 71 or something? Where is it? Okay, here we go. Case in point, Seven Nation Army. I'm not saying that's a bad song, all right, but that is the key track. And they place that above Traveling Riverside Blues, Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson sold his soul to Satan himself so all these guitar players could be as good as they are. And he is 71. That's all the thanks this guy gets for ruining his life. Everybody on this list is where they are because of this guy. Just kidding, all right? Don't unsubscribe. I'm just kidding. Just joking around, for God's sakes. But it does piss me off. Anyway, My coffee's getting cold. We're at the credits. It's getting late. I can't drink coffee this late or I'll be up till 2 a.m. I'm working on 5 hours of sleep for the last 2 nights. So anyway, hope you like this video. We're going to close this out with a wonderful picture of Eddie and the light shining down on Eddie. Eddie, we love you, we miss you, and may you rest in peace. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing, comment below, and as always, have a great day. Peace out.